Good evening, everyone. Great to have you with us. We've got a jam-packed show for you tonight as we're discussing the Montreal Canadiens. On this week's Four Downs, we're joined by Elite Sports Tour's Tim Macdonell to break down the team and their early success. Is it nothing but an illusion? On our Pretender-Contender segment, we're also talking about the Arizona Cardinals sitting at 7-1. Are they pretenders or are they contenders? And last but not least, I face off against one of the greatest, CFL legend, Peter Dalla Riva. It's time to read between the lines. Stats are often misleading, and that can't be more true than for the Montreal Canadiens, who, despite having a great start of their season, have some serious issues they need to address. On this week's Four Downs, we're breaking down the Montreal Canadiens 4 different ways, and as always, we invite you to join the conversation at facebook.com/RBTL Sports, as well as on Twitter at RBTL Sports. On this week's show, we welcome this man, Tim Macdonell. You're the president of Elite Sports Tours. Great to see you. We'll talk a little bit about your sports packages a little bit later on in the show. Great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
To his right is my co-host, as always, Anthony Corneli. Great to have you back.
Thank you very much.
And to my left is David Hurley, RBTL contributor and co-host. Great to see you as well.
Love you.
So the numbers definitely lie when we talk about the Montreal Canadiens. There's a lot of gaps, a lot of addressing to do with regards to certain moves that coaches have made, certain players that need to step up. We'll start with you, David. What's one of the things that's really stood out to you with regards to the Montreal Canadiens where the numbers are definitely lying?
Well, the problem is, to me, is David Desharnais. I mean, as your number one centerman, you can't have 7 games without a point. That's a little bit ridiculous. If you're playing with Pacioretty, who's a 39 goal scorer last season, we need him to have some offensive production. If he's not going to produce, we need to switch it up. I mean, and unfortunately...
But who's that fall? Which shoulders does that fall on if you keep playing Desharnais on the first line? I mean, isn't that the coach's responsibility?
Yes, it is the coach's mistake. But again, Marc Bergevin gave him a contract that's a little bit too long and too ridiculous for David Desharnais. What he brings to the table at 5'7", 180 pounds, but he's probably $160 wet. He's not really doing the job for me. I think you should put a Galchenyuk, put a Plekanec. But it's the connection that he has with Pacioretty that's just fantastic right now.
Do you agree?
I disagree, to be totally honest. I really like what he brings to the team as far as, you know, but obviously the numbers aren't there. He's not producing what you need. But I think that goes down with a long list of individuals on the Montreal Canadiens. You know, I think Rene Bourque's a guy that they brought in last season. They made a trade. I think you need to expect a little bit more from him. You know, he's
except for the playoff run.
The playoff run is great, but unfortunately we're not in the playoffs last year anymore. This is a new season. You know, and right now they had a hot start and they need to capitalize. They came back from a bad road swing where basically they picked up 2 out of 8 possible points, and one of them was an overtime win, right? Yeah. So as far as performance goes, that's not the expectations that the fans or anybody has of this Montreal Canadiens. So I think it kind of brought them down to earth, and it goes beyond just the first line centerman, right? Like I think you need that goal scoring across the board. You can't just rely on you know, the Montreal Canadiens team to have these small spurts of offensive production, but then you see them in other games where they're getting blown out by Edmonton or Calgary and stuff.
Well, that's it. Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because you talk about being blown out, right? You talk about Tampa Bay 7-1, 3-0 against Edmonton, yep. Which there was no reason why the Canadiens should have lost that game. I don't care who Yakupov is, right? That should have been in the bag. A Western trip, they should have got their points. But you look at the way they're being blown out, the way they're losing games. This is way more than just individuals not playing. I mean, this could also be a mental thing too. Are you pleased with the way that, you know, Michel Therrien is refusing to? I mean, he's shuffling all the lines. None of the lines are the same as they were last year when they did their deep playoff cup run. How do you feel about that? Do you feel that Therrien's got to make some moves here?
I think he might have lost the locker room. Not naming a captain could be a problem. You have guys like Plekanec that have been in the Montreal Canadiens organization for 10 years now. He captained the Czech Republic at the Olympics year in and year out with guys like Jaromir Jagr. How can he not captain the Montreal Canadiens?
I think I agree with you on that one. I think they did drop the ball in not giving Plekanec the seat.
I don't think so.
I think they want to give it to Subban, and Subban's immaturity is the kind of the big worry. They're thinking about Pacioretty or him because they have long-term contracts, and Plekanec's coming up, and they're not sure they're going to renew him.
But if you watch the 24CH, you know that there's leadership there. Just because there's no C on the team. You see Malhotra right on the 24CH. You see how he steps up and he's the talker. Sure, he's 39 years old.
He's a veteran.
Sure, but I don't think it's entirely based on the fact fact that there's a lack of leadership.
I think there may be too many voices in the locker room.
That could
you
be.
should have, we all know that Thomas Plekanec and Andrei Markov, if you're looking at veterans on the team, are not very vocal guys.
Absolutely.
But they're guys that game in, game out, play with their heart, and they show the talent.
The guys that are vocal, guys like PK Subban, they're big, flamboyant on the ice. They got to lead not only by flashy goals, they got to lead first by defense.
Yeah, and PK's been, I mean, if you look at the numbers, I mean, he's the most penalized D-man in the league. There's been countless amount of goals that have been scored on the Canadiens when he's been in the penalty box. He's not leading by example. It's been Markov who's actually, believe it or not, the workhorse, who's pulling that. These are the things that people don't like about PK. This is the side that people don't like about PK. You can pay him money, he can be flashy, he can dig out the goalie. We saw that a couple of weeks back. But when it comes to leadership, when it comes to doing the right little things on the ice, he doesn't seem to do it. And for the last couple of games, I think he's taken a step back. He's not playing his best hockey.
I mean, getting that $9 million contract might have gotten a little bit to his head, but you have to think of it. PK Subban is going to be the future, and in a couple of years, that $9 million is going to be relative to a $6 million contract now. The salary cap's just going to go up with that Rogers Sports deal. Sure. So you know that the NHL's that extra revenue is going to come back up. But PK Subban is still a little immature, and that's why I don't think he should have been captain. I think they dropped the ball. They should have gave it to Plekanec or even Markov. But again,
you agree with Plekanec as the captain?
I like him as what he brings to the team, but to be totally honest, I don't necessarily think the captain's the issue on the team or the voices. I think you lost key pieces with Briere leaving Gionta. I know Gionta was a time, to kind of move in a different direction, but when you lose those key guys, those are kind of like the grit, and you see that Briere was, in my opinion, a big part of that playoff run last year, and just to lose him basically, and you shore up your bottom lines. He's a veteran guy. Maybe he's the guy who can keep certain players in line, and maybe don't need guys like PK or whoever to be as vocal, right? They're, like you mentioned, they're really young. Maybe PK is not that guy or at that right point right now. He's a great superstar player, but maybe he's not the guy or that people, older veterans want to take, advice from, because he is sometimes caught out on the blue line and getting blown by and causing mistakes, and ultimately sometimes they cost the team games, or other players, you lose their motivation, right? So I think there's a lot of small changes in that locker room, and whether it be lineups or different players that kind of ultimately change the makeup of this team right now.
Love what you bring to the show, but we're changing up gears. I know you're a big NFL fan as well. We're talking about the Arizona Cardinals, gentlemen, to find out if you guys think they are pretenders or contenders. That's coming up right after this. The Arizona Cardinals are the NFL's most pleasant surprise by this point of the season. The question is, are they pretenders or are they contenders? We invite you, as always, to join the conversation at facebook.com/RBTLSports or on Twitter @RBTLSports. We welcome back Tim Macdonell. Great to have you back.
Cheers, thank you.
To his right is RBTL contributor and co-host Anthony Corneli. Great to have you. And to my left, David Hurley. Great to see you. All right, gentlemen, pretenders, contenders sitting at 7-1. 5-2 is one thing, 6-1 is one thing, but 7-1 is a statement. Pretenders or contenders?
Absolutely contenders. Looking at this team, a lot of people probably aren't even aware. This Cardinal team, going back to last year, is 14-3 in their last 17 games. So as far as that goes, that's an impressive feat. You've got Bruce Arian, who's obviously come in and he's got 20 years experience in NFL. He's obviously put together this team that's got one of the best defenses. This past weekend, we got to see the best rushing offense versus top 5 rushing defense, and they were the first team to keep DeMarco Murray, one of the best running backs, under 100 yards.
I agree with you that they've done well this season, but I think they're pretenders, and this is why. They're going to lose twice to Seattle, once to San Fran, and they're definitely losing to one game to St. Louis, and I see them losing to Detroit. So they're going to lose 6 games in the remainder of the season, or 5 games in the remainder of the season, which will put them at 10-6. At 10-6, you're no longer the best team. I think Seattle will surprise people, go on a late stretch, win the division.
I disagree. I think Seattle, they lost Golden Tate, a couple key pieces there.
Yeah.
There's no way they're going to lose 2 games to Seattle. They just lost a terrible game. In the past, Seattle is just not what you expect offensive threat. You've got San Francisco too. Like, they had a heartbreak against St. Louis. St. Louis is nobody to be looked over by any means, and they could very well beat Arizona. But I could see this team walking in with a 12-4 record. And last time in 2008, they had a record of 9-7, and they made the Super Bowl versus the Steelers. So I think they can't be overlooked by any means.
Tim, I have to agree with you. I know you are our guest, and the guest is always right, but I'm going to go with my boy right there, David Hurley. I think they are pretenders. Carson Palmer, turnover king. Got to give him the crown. When times get rough, he has a problem stirring up the offense. He has a problem getting it going.
He's got 2 interceptions this season, 11-2.
Yeah, he's playing well.
He's playing amazing.
The gritty part of the season hasn't
playing
come
well
yet.
right now, but he's known to choke in big games. In Cincinnati, he never really won a big game.
But in all fairness, one of the main reasons why I think they're pretenders, and I agree with you, Tim, I think they're pretenders because of Bruce Arians. I think that it goes way beyond what they're doing on the field. Bruce Arians, right from the offseason, made it very clear that it was championship or nothing. He's instilled that into his players. He's instilled that, and it's a philosophy that took a little bit of time to buy into, but whoever wasn't bought into that system is surely buying into it now, which is where it becomes scary, right? Saying 7-1. But I think he's absolutely bringing that winning mentality, and especially to Carson Palmer, I think that that's going to reflect good onto him to be able to step up in those pressure
I agree
situations.
that Bruce Arians has been helping out that offense, but
and
maybe
this is a team without Darryl Johnson, Darnell Dockett. I would think, you know what, once you lost those 2 players, it's over. But they're
Michael Floyd took a lot of offensive play on this year. He's been phenomenal. Since he came out of Notre Dame, there's big expectations on him, and he's finally coming through. But where I have a big problem with that team is on defense. I mean, Patrick Peterson signs a $70 million deal. He's got 0 interceptions. Their best cornerback is a guy who can't even name his kids, and Antonio Cromartie.
Yeah.
So I think there's a problem there, and your defense needs to step it up. You're 32nd against the pass. By the way, there's 32 teams in the NFL.
No, absolutely. Their secondary is weak, and we've seen that versus Denver. That's their one big loss. Since Arian took over, they rush on blitz on over 49% of snaps there. So I mean, obviously Peyton Manning's a guy who can call the audible and read defenses, and he exposed them. Absolutely. Yeah. So you're in a position that is going to be a factor down the road. Will they win the Super Bowl? In my opinion, no. But will they make the playoffs or potentially win the division? Absolutely. And you know, that's good enough.
Is it that the Cards are playing well, or is it that Seattle is not playing up to their level?
Seattle's not playing to the level.
If you look at all the way the games have been lost, though, right? They've been tight games, right? In terms
right, but I mean, like you said earlier, Golden Tate's loss has been big. Now trading with Percy Harvin, you're losing. Zach Miller hasn't been there for the most of the season, so Seattle on offense is not the same team.
I'm curious to find out your opinion. I was switch gearing a little bit with regards to pretenders or contenders. Mark Sanchez, Nick Foles out with the collarbone, gone kaboom. He's finished. He's out. Can Mark Sanchez pull a Nick Foles, right? Because we've seen Nick Foles do that with Michael Vick. What do you think about Mark Sanchez?
I think regardless of what people are saying, Mark Sanchez is not cold. He went in there yesterday. His first pass was a 53-yard
touchdown
bomb, laser bomb.
So contender for you.
I think he's a contender. I mean, Mark Sanchez takes snaps every day in practice. He knows Chip Kelly's offense well, and I think he could be the right man to lead the Eagles into the playoffs.
I don't know, throwing one more interception than career TD passes over the course of the last 63 games.
He was sacked twice on Sunday, and he also had 2 interceptions.
Right, one of them was Sanchez, off the wide receiver's hands as a gift.
But at the same time, at the end of the day, it's part of the game, you know. And the typical Mark Sanchez that we know would have actually turned over one of those fumbles, you know, on a sack. And you know, at the end of the day,
a butt fumble or running into his blocker, or
he's a great backup quarterback, but at the end of the day, any Eagles fan or any basically coach in the NFL would definitely start Foles over Sanchez.
But at the end of the day, think about it. Mark Sanchez came into the league. His first 2 years went to the AFC Championship game.
Lost in both.
But as a rookie, he came out guns blazing, and he had no offense. He's had no offense in his time with the New York Jets. He's got Macklin, he's got Selleck, and on top of that, what's going to be his bread and butter? He's got 2 workhorses at running backs, and LaShawn McCoy and Darren Sproles.
But I don't think that the issue, and you guys can weigh in on this, I don't think the issue of Mark Sanchez is his physical capability, or because we've seen him do some incredible things from a physical standpoint. The question is the mental toughness, right? This is not an Eagles team going in, cruising into the playoffs. If that's the case, I have no issue with Mark Sanchez. If we're talking about a win or go home situation, I'm not convinced with Mark Sanchez. Well, again, I think he's a pretender.
I really, really like LaShawn McCoy, and I really, really like Darren Sproles. I mean, they have the 8th best running offense in the league right now and the 5th best passing league. But they're not the best passing league. With Sanchez, they're not going to be, but that 8th is going to come down to the top 3.
What are our expectations, though, for this team? I mean, you've got Dallas that basically it's up to them to win the division or throw it away, right? But even so, long term, like they still got a great offense, you know, a good defense in Dallas. You know, it's basically the battle of 2 injured quarterbacks basically going against each other, backups between Dallas and Philadelphia. So long term, maybe they might squeak out a playoff spot. I think if they don't win the division, it's going to be really tough for a wild card spot there. If they are, they're going to be a first-round playoff exit. So, I mean, even if that makes them a contender, they're not going to go very far regardless. They're not up there.
expectations we have for you is for you to become a regular guest on this show. Love the energy you brought.
Perfect.
And I want to talk a little bit real quickly about Elite Sports Tours and what you do. Maybe talk to us about where people can find you and what you do.
Absolutely. So elitesportstours.ca. So we're Canada's leader in sports travel. We do hotel and ticket packages to a variety of events. So if you want to go see your Habs in in New York, for example, we can put together packages for you and your buddies, set you guys up.
Or if the boys want to go see the Bills.
Oh,
yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
Yeah, we'll be in Buffalo.
Is it on the house?
I hear you. Well, friends of friends, right? But yeah, we're down in Buffalo this weekend to see the Bills versus Chiefs, so that'll be a big battle. Obviously, the Bills are pushing for a playoff run there, so yeah, definitely check out elitesportstours.ca, and glad to be on the show, guys.
Thanks for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Cheers.
Stay right there after the break. You know what it is? It's time for the spread as we give you our Thursday night picks. It's Thursday night. You know what that means. We've got our picks and some marquee matchups in the world of professional sports right here on The Spread. We're joined by Tim, Anthony, and David. Gentlemen, welcome back. We'll start with you, Tim. What do you got?
Yeah, first off, obviously we have a big matchup between Philadelphia and the Carolina Panthers. Huge for obviously both teams. Playoff implications here. Carolina obviously needs a win. Philadelphia, we're going to see if they're pretenders or contenders with Mark Sanchez in the quarterback spot. I think the Panthers personally cover the 6 points. Whether or not they get the win, we'll have to see.
Montreal Canadiens Saturday night. Nobody does it better than the Habs. And it's the return of Vanek as Minnesota's in town.
Opening ceremonies for any event at the Bell Center are spectacular. I think the Canadiens are going to take that emotion on retiring Guy Lapointe's jersey and roll with it and get the win.
And in the world of professional boxing, the executioner, half a century old, still kicking it, still going for titles, Bernard Hopkins is in a fight on Saturday.
Yeah, against Kovalev. Kovalev's 25 fights. He's got 23 knockouts, 24 wins, and 1 draw. Should win. He's younger, but I'm going to take the big underdog in Bernard Hopkins. He kicks it at 49. I think he gets a
Never
W.
thought I'd heard that. Underdog and Bernard Hopkins in the same sentence.
Yeah, that's different.
We'll go with you. Start your picks. What are your 3
Absolutely.
picks?
Obviously, the Panthers to cover, as I mentioned. I'm going to go with Kovalev by knockout, and then obviously the Habs at home.
I'm going to take the Canadiens to pick up a big win against Minnesota. I got the executioner to win in 15 rounds.
Yeah, 15.
And I got the Eagles to cover at home, and Sanchez is going to stay perfect in the red zone.
Whoa, big one.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Bernard Hopkins winning that fight. I do like the Montreal Canadiens, Guy Lapointe's retirement. And I actually like the Eagles to win outright by more than 7. Mark Sanchez and LaShawn McCoy are really going to win that game.
I'm an Eagles fan, but I don't like Mark Sanchez, so I'm going with Carolina to win that game. Montreal at home, never disappoint. And the executioner, I've been following him for years. Great to see him, so I've got Bernard in that fight. There you have it. Those are our picks. We invite you to give us your opinion. Do you agree, disagree? Follow us on our social networks at facebook.com/RBTLSports, as well as on Twitter at RBTLSports. Stay with us after the break. I face off against CFL legend Peter Dalla Riva. As an athlete, it's rare that you ever make it to the Hall of Fame, let alone the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. And this week, I'm facing off against CFL legend, the great Peter Dalla Riva. Great to have you on the show. Thanks for taking the time.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
So I want to talk to you about being inducted into the Hall of Fame. First and foremost, it must be a crowning moment of your career. Talk to us about that moment for you and your family and what it meant to you.
Well, you first get the call from the commissioner. It's you don't know whether to believe him or what. And
it's one of your boys, right, making that call to you?
Yeah, and then it just, after it's for real, you kind of settle down, and I really appreciate it, and you start thinking of where you started and how you got there. And
was it bittersweet in the sense that it was the official closure of moving forward? Was that for you the nail in the coffin to say, hey, you know what?
I never thought about the Hall of Fame, but it is. You can't get any higher than that. Canadian Football Hall of Fame right now, we're at 202 years, the CFL, and there's only 271 people in the hall, in that room.
Sure.
So it's kind of a special place. But when it happens, it's and the weekend that you have it, it's really for your family and friends that participate and see it, and you're involved with it. It shakes you up all weekend, and it's quite a thing to go through, and it's really I don't know. I'm lucky, and I appreciate it.
I want to talk to you about the CFL because I know they do a great job in honoring their greats, but the product itself has been questioned recently in terms of the evolution of CFL. You've been out of the game for a long time. Do you like where the CFL is going? Do you like the identity that the CFL is putting out there? Or some would say that they're trying to assimilate more towards the NFL. Do you like that approach?
Not really. We kind of always did our own thing. Our game's different. It's more wide open. I know my era, the 70s, was a great era for the CFL. If you look at the stadiums, they were all full. And the parity between all the teams are really good.
Do you think that was directly related to the product on field, or was that because the NFL hadn't made the transition yet into Canada?
Well, no, it's just you can't compete with the NFL. You know, they have the money. You can't compete with them compared to our the countries. You know, they're a bigger country, more population. They can negotiate their contracts with TV people. We've got what, 1, 2, 3 broadcasters to negotiate with, and they make a lot of their money that way. We always can more or less do our own thing. It's Canadian Football League. It's wide open. The field's bigger. The balls used to be bigger, but they brought them down a bit, so it's easier to handle. But our game's a heck of a game. It's a wide open game. Their game is it's more tight. Like I say, the guys are bigger, and
definitely TV friendly. You mentioned
exactly. But they've got so many cameras when they broadcast, and I mean the money that they have to operate. They're over $10 billion operation a year. I mean that's phenomenal.
You mentioned the 70s and how they were great. There was one Grey Cup. You made 6 Grey Cup finals, 3 of which you won and 3 of which you lost, but you would argue...
Gave away.
You gave away. Right. I like that, by the way. I'll use that. But one of the things that really stood out was in 1977, the 65th Grey Cup. You're in the Big O. It's full to capacity. It's known as the Ice Bowl, the Ice Grey Cup Bowl. Talk to us about what happens in this misconception, because there seems to be some sort of aura around Tony Proudfoot about him stapling the shoes, right? Talk to us a little bit about what happened in that locker room. Quickly let us know.
Yeah, there was actually there was 2 other guys, Wally Buono and Chuck Zapek, our 3 defensive players that went out in the field and started thinking and seen some electrician that was there or something had a staple gun, and they got the idea of putting it in, and Tony, you know, really took
it literally into the shoes.
Yeah, he took it a step forward, you know, and I guess everybody, the media, you guys started to make a big thing about it. Any advantage that we did have was probably that we had shoes to pick from, whichever felt comfortable for us before the game, which we tried, like myself. I didn't wear the regular shoes that I played in the turf. I wore another pair of grippers that they had because I felt comfortable with that. I didn't put staples in mine. Some people did. Psychologically, they thought it was going to help them, so they did. So you let the guys do their own thing before the game. Everybody gets ready different. And as long as you're comfortable, and because you got to get ready and you got to play a championship game. So
and you guys ended up spanking them that game too, right? So you guys brought it to them. Who knows?
Well, pretty good. Yeah, they came out in the field yelling and screaming, and at first, and then all of a sudden the first half was pretty tight. I mean, everybody's making mistakes because of the field fumbling and back and forth, and then we kind of broke it open in the second half. I remember running into Dan Kepley, the great middle linebacker at Edmonton there, TV show, and said that we cheated. He said, you know, put staples in their shoes. So I just say, Dan, I said, well, the staples 35 points different. So try to have some fun with it. But no, that's, everybody talks about that. And through the years in Montreal, I said, everybody tells me, you know, I remember that game. I was at that game. I was at that game. Well, if I tell you all the people that have told me they were at that game, we're supposed to have just over 68,000 people.
68,000.
But all the people I met through the years, I think we had 168,000.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Everybody says they were all there. Probably watched it on TV, but...
Definitely one of the highlights that's talked about. It's great to have you in. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you. And you've got so many stories. I could do a full show on you. And I look forward to having you back and talk a little bit more. Before we let you go, we always like to have a little bit of fun with our guests and have a rapid fire segment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you 5 random topics, 5 random questions. You just give me the first thing that comes to your mind in 1 word or less, or 2 words or less. So first things first, the best quarterback that you've ever seen play or received a pass from?
Sonny Wade.
Are NFL players overpaid?
I don't think football players are overpaid.
Are CFL players underpaid?
They're always underpaid.
Is Anthony Calvillo the greatest quarterback to have ever played in the CFL?
He's one of the great ones, but I don't think he's the greatest quarterback. There's a lot of great quarterbacks.
And last but not least, in 1 word, what is the one thing or one person that you miss the most, whether it's in the locker room or the football field?
You miss the locker room, you miss the guys you played with, definitely, for sure. For sure. You miss the guys you play with, what you have with them, what you go through training from day 1 at training camp, right through the championship game, which really tops it all off. You can't beat nothing better than that.
Well, you were there 6 times, you won 3, and you gave 3 away. Great
right.
to have you on the show. Thanks for taking the time,
Thank
Peter.
you.
Really appreciate it. We invite you to connect with Peter Dalla Riva and with us at facebook.com/RBTL Sports, as well as on Twitter @RBTL Sports. Give us your opinion, have your say, and join the conversation. Until next time, it's already done. We'll see you next week. Thanks for being with us.
Adam Reid's wardrobe is provided by Carve Clothing, available at carve.ca. Salon services courtesy of Glam Atelier, La Maison de Beauté. Catering services provided by Season Dreams by J. Anthony.